It's the end of the line for the New South Wales Transport Minister after several days of scandal surrounding the use of a taxpayer-funded vehicle. Jo Haylen yesterday fell on her sword at a time when the state government is at loggerheads with rail unions that's often left Sydney commuters with no transport of their own.
Hiding out with a brave face.
Have you rorted the system, Jo? What was that trip for the Blue Mountains for? Will you be paying back for that one as well?
The pressure over the use of public money became too much for Jo Haylen to bear.
This morning I've told the Premier that I will resign my position as Minister for Transport. I will continue to serve this government as the member for Summerhill.
Taxpayers are furious over Haylen's decision to use a government driver to ferry her and 5 others from her beach house to a winery lunch in the Hunter Valley, a 13-hour, almost 500-kilometre trip for the Sydney driver.
I've made some mistakes. People aren't perfect. I did not break the rules, but I acknowledge that that's not the only test here. I've let the public down, and I'm very sorry for that.
The minister downplayed reports of another winery trip with her husband last year.
I did take a trip last year with my husband to the Hunter Valley. It was not the same circumstances as the 25th of January. I was working on that day, but I do want to acknowledge that my use of my personal driver was an error of judgment by me. My mistakes are now causing the government damage.
As well as Saturday sport runs for her and her children from the beach house to Sydney.
You don't clock out from being a minister. You work every single minute of the day, just like you don't clock out from being a mum.
The Premier accepted Haylen's resignation, calling her decisions an error of judgment, acknowledging there are too many grey areas where private and public uses blur, promising to tighten the rules. Effective immediately, ministerial drivers are only to be used for official business purposes or for private purposes if the use is incidental in the course of the minister's duties. It's a major blow for Chris Minns, who has supported Jo Haylen through several scandals since she took on the transport portfolio, now having to find a replacement during a pay dispute with rail unions. The opposition accusing the Premier of weak leadership and making excuses to protect his political ally. Haylen, a hard-left Labor member and former staffer for Julia Gillard and Anthony Albanese, backed Chris Minns from the party's right faction when he took on Jodie McKay for New South Wales Labor leadership in 2019 and then again in 2021. Minister for Regional Transport and Roads, Jenny Aitchison, will become Acting Transport Minister before Roads Minister John Graham is sworn in on an interim basis on Friday. Julia Bradley, Sky News, Sydney.